name is Laura and welcome to my channel Boundless Books. Man, it has been a while since I stood in front of the camera to make one of these videos. So today I thought it would make sense to get back into the swing of things, to do a video with a selection of books that I have read, am currently reading, and am about to read. So hopefully this will give you guys a sense of what I've been up to recently, and then also help me practice speaking in front of the camera again. Alright, so the first book that I'd like to talk to you guys about is called The Last Magician by Maxwell. So I've read another book by Lisa Maxwell before called Unhooked, and that book was okay. I actually didn't even realize that she was the same author when I started reading The Last Magician, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't know it was the same author as the author of Unhooked, because that book was okay, but this book was really good, like very, very enjoyable. It involves time travel, magic, and a turn-of-the-century setting. I mean, what more could you ask for in a book? Honestly, it's so up my alley. Moving between modern-day New York and 1901, the book follows a group of magician, or magus as they're referred to, who are set on taking down this shadowy organization called the Order. And the Order is bent on destroying all magus in America. To achieve that end, the Order have constructed this magical barrier around the island of Manhattan called the Brink, and any magus who cross over the Brink are stripped of all of their magical abilities. At the heart of this novel is a magus called Esta, and she has the unique ability of being able to control time. Esta is tasked with going back in time to 1901 New York, joining up with a group of magus who are the last known people to have possessed this ancient manuscript which apparently has the secrets to destroying the Brink, and then uncovering one of their number, a magician, who will ultimately betray them and run off with the secrets of the book. The novel follows multiple perspectives. Obviously there is Esta, the time-traveling magus. There's also a number of other side characters that the novel follows, all of whom are really well developed and their perspectives are incredibly interesting to read about. Generally, I try to avoid books told from multiple perspectives. I get frustrated when I'm very into one of the plot lines and then the perspective changes and I don't get to follow up with that plot line again for another 50 to 100 pages. But I actually really liked the multiple perspectives in this story. I thought the author did an incredibly good job of keeping the pace moving, even though it was constantly jumping between all these different people. I think what helped was that they were all very related. You didn't feel like you were just jumping off to another side of the world and the plot line that the author was following was completely unrelated to another one. Overall, I would definitely give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I honestly just couldn't put it down. I was on vacation while I was reading this, and rather than go outside and socialize with the family, I was just inside devouring reading this book. Okay, up next is probably my favorite book that I have read recently, and it is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So I read Laini Taylor's other series, Daughter of Smoke and Bone. That series was pretty darn cool. It had chimeras and angels, and it was just very inventive, yet really realistic feeling because the world was so well described. So going into this novel, I knew it was going to be something pretty cool, but I honestly wasn't prepared for how freaking fantastic it was. The novel is set in a fictitious land and follows an orphan by the name of Laszlo Strange, which by the way is a incredibly cool name. And as a child growing up amongst these monks in this really austere environment, he dreams and hunts down every story he can find of this fantastic place called Weep. The stories describe Weep as a land of magic, mystical beasts, and the kind of beauty denied Laszlo growing up in this monastery. And perhaps most vexing of all to Laszlo Strange is that Weep is a city of secrets, most notably its name, because every time Laszlo attempts to say the name of the city, all he can actually say is Weep, and part of him knows instinctively that the true name of the city has been hidden. So I'm not going to say anything more about this book. Honestly, don't read any reviews. Just pick it up and start reading it. The joy of this book is discovering and learning about Weep along with Laszlo Strange, and just going on this insane journey into this beautiful world that Laini Taylor has created. Again, this is another book that switches between a couple perspectives. I still loved it. Maybe I don't dislike multiple perspectives. Maybe I actually do like them, because this is 2 books recently that I've read that jump between perspectives. Maybe I need to do some soul searching. So if you haven't read this book, please just go and get it and just start reading it. I would give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. My only complaint is that this is the beginning of a sequel and the second book is not out yet. And when I finished it, I think I let out an audible groan because I was just so sad that I couldn't read anymore. But that's okay. I'll wait. I'll be patient. It was just still so good. And the next book or books that I would like to talk about is the Veiled Isles Trilogy by Paula Brandon. And I actually had to go out and buy physical copies of these from Amazon because, alas, it is out of print, so there is no ebook to be found. I'm probably one of the only people on BookTube who prefers to read on their Kindle, but you know what? I'm a rebel. This trilogy was actually recommended to me by a lovely viewer with the username Divine Aria. Thank you so much for recommending this series to me. She saw that I'm a fan of Paula Volsky, and Paula Brandon is actually a pseudonym for Paula Volsky. This series is set on the Veiled Isles, where inexplicable things are happening. Magic is becoming unmoored from its governing laws, and a strange sickness is sweeping the land, causing the dead to rise up. But for Magnifico Areste Bellandar and his daughter, Gianna, life is rosy and safe behind the walls of their estate. That is until Gianna sets off on a trip to meet her new husband and is abducted by vengeful relations. Gianna is pulled into a world of rebels and vendettas. Meanwhile, her father, Areste, is forced to leave the safety of his estate and confront the strange state of magic within the Isles. So the whole time I was reading this, I could not help but make comparisons between this series and Paula Volsky's other novel, Illusion, which is one of my all-time favorite books. Similar to Illusion, the novel has a protagonist who starts off incredibly pampered and somewhat unlikable, but through a series of events is sort of pulled out of her bubble and becomes somebody who you really root for. And in this novel, that is Gianna. There's also a young, rebellious character who really embraces the ideas of the Enlightenment and science and progressiveness. There's also a bunch of kooky characters who gravitate towards magic, but overall, I would have to say that I liked this series less than I liked Illusion. I would give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that there were a number of scenes in this series that felt a bit unnecessary. The first book in the series is pretty much just the preface, and it's only until the second 2 books in the series that things actually start to happen, which is probably why on Goodreads the first book has the lowest rating. That makes sense to me. The other thing that I struggled with in this series, which was not the case at all in Illusion, is the fact that the magic system feels very unexplained. Characters kept on talking about the fact that magic was becoming unmoored from its governing laws, but I didn't fully understand the rules that governed the magic system, so I didn't feel that strangeness with those characters. I only was able to witness it by hearing them talk about it. So my main takeaway is, if you have already read books by Paula Brandon / Paula Volsky before, then this is a really fun trilogy to read. You're definitely going to enjoy it if you enjoyed Illusion. However, if you've never read anything by Paula Volsky / Paula Brandon before, I would say you should start with Illusion. Overall, the concept of that novel was much cooler. It's based off of an alternate retelling of the French Revolution, which has magic and steampunk elements to it. So that's just a selection of some of the books that I have been reading. Now on to what I'm currently reading, and that is Golden Dragon by V.E. Ulett. The author actually reached out to me to see if I was interested in reading this book, and when I read the description, I said, yes, definitely, please send it my way, because this book pretty much ticks off all of the boxes. Steampunk, magic, and a historical setting. Pretty much all of the things that I look for in a book. The novel is set in the 1800s, shortly around the time of the Napoleonic Wars, I believe, and it follows a young woman named Miriam Kodio Blackwell. Miriam is an Iranian native who is essentially recruited by the British Crown to work as a spy. As a woman and as a Muslim, Miriam is able to access places that obviously the white British men are not able to. At the beginning of the novel, Miriam is in Algiers trying to help the British government obtain some hostages that have been taken by the Dey of Algier. And even though Miriam is successful in her mission, the crown is not done with her yet, and soon she finds herself on a magical flying ship called Nonsuch on her way to southern China in order to help free a woman who has been taken by pirates. I love Miriam. She's a very cool protagonist, somebody who's Middle Eastern, who wears a burqa through much of the novel, and the fact that she is such a strong woman, even though she's in this difficult situation where she's essentially being forced by the crown to act as a spy. She's very self-possessed, and she kind of goes with the flow in a way that I really admire. I'm only 40% of the way through the book, so I can't give you my final rating of it yet, but once I finish it, I'm definitely going to be posting a more comprehensive review on Goodreads, and I'll give you my final rating then, so keep an eye out for that. But I'm pretty excited. I really hope that I like the rest of the book, because I think it's the start of a series, and Miriam's a pretty cool heroine, so I'd love to hear more about her. Okay, so now on to the books that I would like to start reading. The first book is Dragons Nova by Elise Kova. That rhymes. So this is the sequel to Alchemist of Loom, which I've talked about in previous videos. I really liked that series. It's incredibly inventive. It follows a chimera, and it takes place on this land called Loom that is being ruled by these magical beings called dragons that live on this island that floats above Loom called Nova. And shockingly, I just have not gotten around to reading this yet. And the reviews online for it are awesome, so I'm really stoked. I just have had a bunch of other books that I purchased and wanted to finish reading before starting on this, but hopefully this week I will be able to start and finish it. Alright, the next book that I'm looking forward to reading is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, and this is the sequel to An Ember in the Ashes. So this has actually been out for quite a while now, so the primary thing holding me back from reading this book is the fact that I don't remember the first book that well. I remember enjoying it and it being really engrossing and having lots of details and world building. Essentially the first book was all world building, but I think I need to reread it before I can get to this one. And given that I've had a lot of books that I've never read before that I want to read, I just haven't had the motivation to go back and read An Ember in the Ashes. That being said, I recently purchased the audiobook, so hopefully that will be the motivation I need to jump back into this world and read the second one. And then the last book that I'm looking forward to reading is the Merlin Trilogy by Mary Stewart. This book was actually another used bookstore buy. I was perusing the bookstore when my parents were visiting recently, and when my dad saw this on the shelf, he was like, oh, you gotta buy and read this book. It was one of his favorites growing up. I always like reading older books. The pacing is definitely very different than modern fantasy, but really fun. I grew up reading a lot of the books that my dad recommended to me and just kind of perusing his massive selection of sci-fi and fantasy novels. Hopefully this will keep me busy for a while. It's like 900 some pages and the print is real itty bitty, so hopefully this will take me a couple weeks to get through. Also, my rabbit definitely destroyed the cover of this. Did quite a number on the jacket before I caught him. One of the many perils of owning a rabbit. So that is what I have for you guys today. Hopefully this gives you some insight into what I've been reading and enjoying recently. So if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with all of my latest content. I would also recommend following me on Goodreads, because when I'm bad about posting videos, I am good about rating and reviewing books on Goodreads. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Hi, my name is Laura and welcome to my channel Boundless Books. Blah, blah. This book, however, was really fun, really awesome. I said really a lot in that sentence. Growing up amongst a community of monks, that is a tongue twister. It's hard to hold 3 books up for this long.